Welcome to the Georgia-Florida Baseball Show, brought to you by Georgia Showcase Baseball and its owner, Coach Ben House. Ben, how we doing?
Doing good, KP. How are you?
I'm great, man. I'm great. I'm Kevin Perkins, and I am your host. And today we have a four-time Hall of Famer, fourth winningest coach in junior college history. Is that right, Coach?
That's correct.
That is correct. He has a legend in both the high school and college levels. Junior college level. He has done everything there is to do in coaching baseball, and we are glad to have him here, Coach Randy Putman. How you doing, Randy?
I'm doing great. Glad to be with you two guys.
Yeah. Full disclosure, we've known each other a long time.
Yes, we have. We've had some good days and probably not so many good days, but we've had some. There's been more positive than negative for sure.
Yeah. Ups and downs. Well, especially when we faced Ben, those were tough days.
Yeah, they wasn't easy. We found a way to win every time, but I mean, they wasn't easy.
Ben was something. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to discuss Coach Putman's background. We're going to talk about how he got to where he is today. We're going to talk about what he looks for in recruits, some of his coaching philosophies, possibly some of his philosophies on leadership and things like that. We're going to do all of that. Does that sound good, Coach?
Oh, that sounds great.
All right, man. We're going to do all of that and more after the break.
This is the Georgia-Florida Baseball Show, brought to you by Coach Ben House with Kevin Perkins from Surrounded by Sports.
Welcome back. First of all, thank you to Arden's Garden, our sponsor, and your Atlanta source for juices, smoothies, and plant-based foods. Coach, you are a Birmingham native. You start out. You have a great high school career. You go up to Calhoun Community College. You have a great career there. You wind up at Jack State. You have a great career there. You do 2 years in the minors. One thing you told me that I thought was interesting, you said you worked while you were going to college. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was my second year. I went to Calhoun out of high school and had a situation where my father was blind and I had to move back closer to home. So I was I was the oldest of two sons. So what I did was we'd have school in the morning time, baseball, and then I would leave directly after baseball and drive downtown Birmingham and work until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to be able to to help the family. And
Right.
it was something that I had to do that I wanted to do because at the time my mom was not working, and then she later had a job, and so I didn't have to do it in the springtime of that year, but I did in the fall.
Right. That's if you're working and you're doing schoolwork and you're playing ball, you're gonna have to be organized to do all that.
Yeah, that was a difficult time. I had an injury later in the spring where I broke my hand breaking up a double play because I used to like to take out those middle infielders. But in the fall, it was a difficult time. But at the same time, it was something that I needed to do, and it helped me mature as far as becoming a man.
Right. Now then you move on to the Royals and the Padres for a couple of years. You get drafted out of college and you go play ball. And then you wind up, after that's over, you go to Bama and get a degree. And then you wind up taking a job as a GA at UAB for Harry the Hat Walker, right?
Right.
Now Harry the Hat Walker, go ahead.
Yeah, when I got through my last year, when I got released with the Padres, I didn't have a degree, and my wife said, "You've got to be involved in baseball." I didn't know what I was going to do after I got released. And I went back to school. I had about a year to go, and I went back to Alabama. She was finishing up at Alabama. And we got married, and then I got different schools I was talking to about being graduate assistants, but I wanted to go somewhere that would probably be able to influence my career more. And Harry the Hat Walker, who had managed in the big leagues for the Pirates and the Cardinals. And so I went to UAB and I was under him for a year, and I probably learned more baseball under him than anybody that I'd ever been around. And I'd been around a lot of good people. So I give a lot of the credit for the success I've had to Harry, because he was a great baseball man and a true gentleman.
Now Harry won a batting title, and he was a World Series hero. And he came down and spoke to us when I played for you. Now, did you get a lot of your hitting philosophies from him, or did a lot of that reinforce you?
Well, he taught hitting a little bit different because he was more of a front foot guy,
Right.
and I'm a transfer guy. I say keep the weight back and transfer when you hit, but Harry was more of a front foot guy. So he would instruct guys like Terry Poole, Matty Alou, Johnny LeMaster. I remember being around those guys when in the off season, where Harry would coach those guys because the organizations wanted them to be able to, more than a transfer, but to be able to hit more or less off their front foot. So I didn't take everything from Harry, but I do think that guys that can run can be taught to be able to hit that way.
Yeah, I think there's a story that the Pirates sent Omar Marino down there.
He did, yes.
To learn how to hit the ball on the AstroTurf and take off, right?
He did. Yeah. Omar was another one of the guys. He sure was.
Right. Okay, so how do you wind up at Tate? Because they had a good program there, but you come in there and you win a national title right away the first year, and then you win a state title right after that. How did you wind up at Tate?
Well, when I got my master's degree in a year, I got after it and wanted to finish it in a year. And Dickie Martin, a scout with the Atlanta Braves, called me, and he said, there's a position open for the baseball coach down at Tate High School in Pensacola in Cantonment. And so I looked into it, and next thing you know, I was driving down to meet with Ralph Godwin, the principal, and I met with him. And by the time I got back to Birmingham with my wife, he had made a phone call, and when I came in, he offered me the job, and I took the job, and it was 6 years of my great rewarding years.
Right, and you had so much success there. I'm sure you had an idea of what you wanted to be as a coach when you're taking the job. Did the success early, the first 2 years, you win the national title, you win a state title, did that galvanize you in what your philosophies were as a coach and how to do things?
Well, one of the great things when I went to Tate was there was excellent players there. I didn't feel like that they knew how to win. And that's one of the things, because they had always had a good team, but they hadn't won state championships in years. So teaching them how to win, not necessarily how to play the game, because they knew how to play the game. And the players like Max Siebert and Jay Bell, that's just two of them, but I could continue to go on and on with them. They wanted to win, and they wanted to be successful. And so the first year, we went 38-1 and won the national championship. Pine Forest was the only team that beat us, and it was a great year. The next year we were 35-3 with a lot of new guys, but then the following year, 1986, was when we won another state championship and beat Lake Mary down at Rollins College for the state championship.
Right. And we'll talk a little bit about leadership and may go back to some of those teams when we're doing that later on. Now, how do you wind up at Wallace State?
Well, after 6 years, I loved it at Tate. It was one of the most difficult decisions that I've ever had to make. But our daughter was 1 year old. She was born in Pensacola, and my wife and I knew, for both of my parents who was living at the time and her parents living at the time, to be able to see Shelby grow up, then we needed to get back closer to them. So they called me about Wallace State, said it was the second worst program in the United States. They were 7-47 the year before, and 17-73 2 years before, and it was a bad situation. And if you wanted a challenge, it was definitely going to be a challenge. So that's how I ended up at Wallace State, and been here a number of years now.
Right, and I think you said that first year you turned it around with the story is fascinating in itself, but you have a lot of guys there that aren't great players, and you turn it around a little bit with them, but then you reach out to the Pensacola area, which is what you knew, when you bring some guys up there, and then you start to have success, and it doesn't stop, right? You've I want to say 6 trips to the World Series and 7 state titles. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that is correct. Yeah, the guys that were here were not very good, of course, and I kept about 3 or 4 of them, and then I started trying to bring guys up from Pensacola, and I was really surprised that the number of players from Woodham, Washington, of course, Tate, that they were interested in coming up to play. And I think a lot of that was the success that we had at Tate. We were going to continue doing the same things up, in junior college, and that's what we did do. And I did bring up some guys from Pensacola, and they were more or less the foundation of our ball club that we built the program with.
Right, right. Now, Ben, what was it that made you think, hey, I think Randy should be on the show?
Well, I initially met Randy, I think in 1986. I think I was a sophomore in high school, and just knowing about Randy and Tate and how he went about his program and the winning tradition that he brought. I always followed Randy, even when I was in high school, and he was Washington and Tate was always rivals. But Randy was always very influential to me because he taught me even when I wasn't playing for him. He would always tell me little things. Even when I went down to the Florida, I think it was like an all-star game, he would always tell me, he's like, Ben, and when you go down there, man, throw your fastball. Don't go down there, throwing your little spinners, curveball. I want you to throw your fastball because that's what they want to see. And, it meant a lot to me, man, even though that he wasn't my coach, but he was a coach to me. And now that he's coaching my son now at Wallace State, it means a lot to me, not just for him coaching him on the field, but just making him a man off the field. And that means the world to me because I know he's in good hands, doing the things that he needs to do to get a degree at Wallace State. So that's far and foremost the most important thing to me right now is just having my son being down there with him and having him learn from a guy like Randy Putman.
Great, man. Great. All right. Well, hey, that's a great transition there. Let's get into what do you think I think the keys to your success are organization and discipline. Would you agree with that?
I think those two for sure play a lot into it. Yeah, I think if you don't have discipline and you're not organized, then your players are not going to be that way. So it's an example that you've got to set each day. And but something else that plays along with it too, with those two, is the fact that you've got to have passion for what you do. Regardless of where you are, what you're doing, if you don't have passion, then it's hard to be successful. And I've always said, people say, well, they don't have time. Well, you always have time to do the things that's important to you. If it's important, you're going to find time to be able during the day to be able to do it. So, but yeah, discipline, and what I mean discipline is not having to say the same thing over and over to a guy. Being organized is when they get here each day to practice, they know what the plan is. You've got to have a plan because you're not going to get a lot better each day, but you can get a little better each day with everything that you do. I don't care if it's flexibility, long toss, swing mechanics, or whatever you do in baseball that day, you can get better. And so it's just a matter of being, like I said, you've got to have that passion to be able to want to.
Right. Right. One thing I was saying about organizing, you said it takes you an hour and a half to write your practices out. Right. And one thing I've always noticed about the way, or one thing I did notice about the way you do things, there is no wasted time in your practices. If there's
Right.
2 hours in practice, then an hour and 58 minutes, people are actively doing baseball. That's by design, right?
Yeah, I do a practice schedule, and it does when you do every hitter, and they're in specific groups, and every outfielder is in a specific position, and every infielder is in a specific position, and they're playing the ball off the bat. That's one thing that guys don't really enjoy as much, but that's where you learn a lot of the ways you learn to play defense is playing balls live, and so it has to be to the point, and I mean, when I say live, I'm talking about the last inning of the last game. I mean, where the game is on the line, where they've done it enough of being repetitive that it's just it becomes a good habit, and so they don't have a choice; they have to do it.
Right, right. I think I think this is a good time to talk about one of the things that's been the most fascinating thing about having been around you when I was younger is the fact that the way you hit situations. And Ben, I don't know if they tried to duplicate this where you played, but Randy was an All-American hitter, and he could place a ball any place on the field. So if he wanted to work on double cuts, he could get a guy to second base and then hit a ball in the gap, and we'd have to do a double cut. If he wanted to Travis Fryman to make a double play in the hole, he could slap a ball right there in the hole and do. And it was for me, it was fascinating to watch from behind the plate because I'd never seen somebody that could do that. But what you said was what that does is that enables you to have a game every day.
Right. Yeah, the situations that Kevin's talking about is it's live defense where I hit off the pitching machine. I turn it up 85, 86, and I've been blessed to be able to hit the ball. If I want to hit it in the 6 hole, I can. If I want to hit it in the right center field gap, I can. Used to, I'd get mad, and if we didn't make the play, I'd hit it over the fence. But yeah, I don't do that anymore. Possibly because I can't do it as much anymore. But it's a great way to learn that you're teaching defense you're doing it live where the ball is off the bat. It's not being fungoed. And I've been able to do that for a lot of years. And I was able to do it when I played as a hitter, as long as, if guys were throwing in the 80s, if they got up in the 90s, then you're just trying to hit it.
Mm-hmm.
Ben was pitching, I'd be just trying to hit it.
Right.
But so it's a great way to play defense, great way to teach defense, making sure everybody's in the right position, right spot on every ball that's hit, regardless of where it's hit.
Right. And that's a key to one of the keys to your success is the fact that you've had very good defensive teams.
Right. Well, it starts with pitching and defense, and then you have to develop hitters, and I call them green hitters, guys that come through. They're money hitters that can come through and get key hits and knock in runs. But pitching and defense, if you don't throw strikes and you can't make routine plays, then it's hard to win at any level.
Right. Right. Now you've had how many players have you had drafted?
I've had 36 at Wallace.
36 players drafted at Wallace, plus, I mean, a bunch of them from Tate too, right?
Yeah, a bunch from Tate with that. Probably, I would say 7 or 8, maybe even as many as 10 from Tate.
Yeah, and then several that were signed as free agents as well. So, with all that success, what are some of the things that you think all those guys had in common, or several of them have?
Well, if you can find out about a young man by the way they practice. Usually the guys that practice hard, the ones that are disciplined, like we've talked about, then they're probably going to have success in games. The most difficult thing now is that guys lose their confidence quicker than players used to. If you had a guy that if he was 0 for 8, 0 for 4, 0 for 10, he may feel still like he's the better hitter in the lineup, and he probably was. But this day and time, guys will lose their confidence. But the guys that not only the ones that have been drafted, but the ones that have, been successful in playing college baseball, those guys are the ones that they can do it on a consistent basis, not only in games, but they can do it in practice too.
Right. You don't have to tell Craig Kimbrell to get ready for practice.
Well, Craig Kimbrell was, a little bit different with Craig in the sense that he was a very uncomfortable at bat for guys because Craig's his command was not as good as it is once he got to the big leagues, but he was 97 to 99, and he might throw it behind you, or he might hit you, or he might throw it on the outside part. So guys was very uncomfortable at bat off of Craig when I had him, and he developed, and like I said, now I think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We're going to ask Randy what he looks for in recruits and talk a little bit about leadership. Okay? All right. Welcome back. Once again, thank you to Arden's Garden, our sponsor and your source for Atlanta's juices, smoothies, and plant-based food. Thank you to Showcase Apparel for that's your source for your team. Isn't that right, Ben? Ben would be the owner of Showcase Apparel. Appreciate you sponsoring this as well, Ben. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Randy, when you're looking at recruits, what are some of the things you're looking for?
Well, it's kind of like some of the things that I said. I look for guys that's going to hustle. I look for guys that want to be successful. See, everybody wants to win, but you win with the guys that hate to lose. And baseball is a game of failure. But at the same time, there's somebody's going to win at the end of the day. Somebody's going to be better at the end of the day. So when I'm looking for a recruit, I'm looking for not only an infielder that can make plays, it's got good feet, good arm, guys that can hit, outfielders that know how to play the game, that's going to hustle in practice, that's going to, be able to hit, pitchers that throw strikes and compete. But you're looking for that guy that as far as you want every guy to have some leadership qualities. Sometimes you got guys like Ben, who was a quarterback in high school. And you want guys to have that kind of leadership. And a leader is somebody that by not only what they say, but how they act. And that's every single day, not only on the field, in the locker room, going to class, going out to eat. But a leader is somebody that people will follow. And they exemplify that by, like I said, by not only how they act, but what they say too. Right.
Now, Ben, when you were quarterbacking at Washington and stuff like that, did you take that into when you're leading a ball club? Did you feel like you had to lead them off the field as well?
Yeah, well, I took my quarterback skills, leadership role to baseball. So everything that I did, having to have accountability for my teammates, having my teammates look up to me. Look for guidance, look for leadership. Those are the qualities that I took to the baseball field every day. And I think, I still believe to this day that if I would have played for a guy like Randy Putnam, then I would have had a longer professional career, just from the standpoint of him, giving me more of the mental things that I needed. As an 18-year-old, signing a pro contract and going to play professional baseball, I think I needed that guidance from him to make my professional career more sustainable.
Right. It's hard when you are given things and you're very young. And if you had a little bit more of a blueprint as to how this might work, it would have been helpful to you. Now, Randy, do you?
Yeah. Ahead, Kevin. Some of the things that Randy was talking about. When I was a professional, I didn't have anyone to call. To get that guidance from. 18 years old, because I didn't have that structure in high school. I had coaches that believed in me. I had coaches, that kind of gave me the keys to the car to do the things that I needed to do. But I didn't have anyone that I could call on like a Randy Putnam, when I fell into hard times. And I think that was one of the reasons why my pro career didn't last as long as it did. And so being having Randy as someone that I could call on, I think that would help my career a lot longer.
100%, 100%. Now, Randy, when you bring in a recruit and you have a kid, you know what leadership qualities are. You've seen them in a million guys, and I noticed that clubs that I was around a long, long time ago, there were leaders throughout the lineup. There were guys that were on the bench that were in leadership roles, and those guys have wound up. Most of the people I played with are, happy husbands, happy fathers, people that run businesses, do well, police officers. I mean, Rusty Deason had a fantastic career in the military. These great guys. Do you try to bring these qualities out in just about every kid that comes through the program?
Well, you've got to have a number of leaders. It's for every ball club, they have great chemistry that's successful, but they also have great leaders. Now, that's a great responsibility for a guy to become that leader, because most of the time, this day and time, guys can do it when it's convenient. When they're going 3 for 4, they're going 4 for 4. But that great leader is that guys can look to and depend on. It's got to be a young man that he stays consistent. Now, he tries to be consistent every game, of course. I mean, because everybody wants to go 3 for 4, 4 for 4. But what happens when they don't? How are they going to act? Yeah, are they going to be a team guy? Are they not supposed to be happy if you popped up twice and struck out twice? But at the same time, what is your personality going to be? But you've got to have guys. Most of the time, they don't have to be your best players, but they got to be your best team players. I had a young man a couple of years ago that he didn't play much, but he was a great leader, one of the best leaders that I've ever had. And but he didn't play much. But he led by example every single day at practice when he did play, because he was getting the opportunity. But you want guys to be leaders. Ben's son, Jamie, be a tremendous player, be a tremendous hitter. Could be one of the better hitters that I've ever coached. Depends on how bad he wants to do it. And now, as I told Jamie, I said, if you're going to lead, he says he wants to be a leader this year. If you're going to lead, you got to do it in the outfield. You got to do it at the plate. You got to do it in the dugout. And it's not by everything that you do, it's what you say also. And so you try to develop those guys, and you try to give them a little leeway to the point where when they say something, people are always listening.
Right. And one thing, in order to lead, you have to have confidence in the way you'll answer the questions that either life gives you or the ball game gives you. Like, how are you going? How do you handle runners on first and second, this situation, ball in the gap, whatever? You know where you're supposed to be at that time, right? And that gives you confidence. And because you have confidence in what you'll do when questions are asked of you, life asks you questions, you understand how you'll react, you're confident in who you are, and then you're able to lead in that manner. And that's how what you're teaching through baseball is transitioning into these young people's lives further on down the line, right?
That's right, because the reward that you get when you've done it a long time, like I have done it a long time, and I've been very fortunate and blessed to have had some success. But you love to see these young men come back, and regardless of whether they're driving a truck, whether they're working in a factory, whether they're in sales, or whether they're playing baseball, you'd love to see those guys be successful. And the reward is when they come back and they say, Coach, I remember the day we did this, and I'll never forget it. And when I went back for the 40-year anniversary with the Tate players here recently, a lot of the talk was not the 38 wins. They remembered the time that we got beat and remembered what I told them, that it was never going to happen again. Because I said, we ain't losing no more. That's it.
Right.
We won't lose no more. And so a lot of it's based on things that players remember. And then hopefully they're able to base their family, their life, the way they raise their kids. Hopefully they're able to raise their kids the way that they were raised. But at the same time, yeah, it's based on hard work. It's based on being dedicated. It's based on having the love for what you're doing that specific day.
Right. Right. I think that's a good way to wrap the show. I appreciate you saying that. It's find something you're passionate about, and that will help you want to be repetitive in it and doing it till you're very good at it. And then all the confidence and all those things will come from it. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, Randy. I've really enjoyed it. Ben, you got anything you want to add?
No, just want to say thank you, Coach, for coming on the show.
Well, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed being around you guys, and love seeing Kevin again, because we've got a lot of memories, a lot of victories at Tate, and a lot of great memories. So I appreciate you having me on.
Man, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Coach. Appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.